Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Preston Show, episode number 13. This is the podcast number 13. Been a long time coming. Got a lot of things to talk about today. Everybody getting out of the holiday season, getting out of the holiday spirit. New Year's resolutions, made them. Will you fulfill them? It's up in the air. People are too busy. We're too busy. Weed in California, what it's like now. I wanted to start off the show talking about recreational marijuana being legalized in California and what it's like now. Very interesting that in California, one of the most ass-backward states, policy-wise, has been able to pass recreational marijuana, whereas you look at other states that their economy is doing well. You can also see in states like Tennessee, many other states, unemployment rate very low, like 3% low. This is crazy. And this is thanks to the Trump administration. So I'm all about giving credit where credit's due. So you can't necessarily make the case anymore that recreational marijuana is going to create jobs and bring the unemployment rate down. I don't think that's where it targets exactly the base that it needs. I think recreational marijuana targets kind of the opposite, and it's just kind of more of a luxurious, extra kind of icing on top of the cake deal. And it's great for people in California. I'm happy for them. I think it's long overdue. I think industrialization of hemp is far more important and has far more just variables that are so much more well-rounded than what you're seeing with just pot. But medical marijuana is a definite great thing. The CBD oil, the studies are coming back, and so far they've looked good. So, I mean, the world is a very green place. You know what I mean? It's a very luscious place. A lot of luscious land in the world. Depending on what this administration does with the EPA and how the EPA acts, is going to determine exactly where we're headed as far as environmental protections. And really, what pops into my head when we talk about environmental protections is we need to stay away from being like Beijing, China, where there's just fog and smoke poured on the roads all the time, and it's hard to breathe. And, once great cities now covered in their own kind of the demise, kind of in their own face, the way they've tried to build up their industry so fast. And that's why I don't believe we'll have that type of problem, even with the Trump administration or President Trump. Never would want that to happen. And I definitely believe, just like I did with President Obama, that President Trump has our best interest. And wholeheartedly, it's important that it's been a year, and to the environment, I haven't noticed anything different, on a day-to-day basis. And that's just my experience. It's not trying to throw it in anybody's face. It's just on a day-to-day basis. I'm not noticing anything different. It's colder than it was last year. I guess that it would be the closest thing to a difference that I've felt. But you know what? It was cold last year. And I know it was cold. It's a difference between living it and predicting it. And when you live it, you can speak to it. When you're predicting it, just say you're predicting it, and that's what you think could happen. Because telling the weather, we can get close, but as you've seen, it's never 100%. It's never 100%. But it gets closer. It gets closer by the years, I feel. I just feel that it's not 100%, and we're far from it being 100% with predicting weather. This is a stat that I found digging through the research that I do online, and it was just very interesting. And I know there's a lot of right wingers that listen to this podcast, and I thank you for listening to the Preston Show. Once we have open phone lines, you'll be able to call in, so that'll be a great time too. What I'd like to tell you about this stat is, don't go up in arms over this. Don't freak out. I'm just simply wanting to bring this up because it's important, because I'm not seeing any buddy on the conservative side report this or talk about this. I just haven't seen it. And it's the Muslim population in this country is actually on the rise. Pew Data Research reports that it's up 1.1% in Trump's first year. So I just want to put that stat out there. That stat simply because I'm a numbers guy. I like statistics. Show me numbers, show me stats. I'm all about that stuff. And Pew Data Research, unbiased, independent, and they have come up with these numbers here, and it's very interesting. So I'm going to leave that out there for you. Think about that for a second. When you think about all the talk about immigration, you talk about all the talk about the wall, Muslim population actually on the rise. Pew Data Research has reported it's up 1.1% in Trump's first year. President Trump's first year. This is interesting. TPP is being renegotiated, and talks are that were reported on One America News that Britain leaving the EU, the European Union, could ensure better jobs and better protection for those jobs. So I don't know exactly how it gives them a better deal, but I do know one thing. Britain leaving the EU is an important thing to watch in the world, and it's something to keep your eye on. This is not something to just gloss over or glance over. This is something to pay careful attention to. From the news, the main outlets, we get bits and pieces, but this is something to maybe do a little bit more research on for yourself. I think Britain leaving the EU at first is really going to hurt Britain, and it's really going to hurt Great Britain. After that, I'm talking 5 years at a minimum, they're going to be in a great position, and they're going to be very much so determining their own path as far as currency change, as far as you name it. Their infrastructure, which is minimal because it's an island. So, you're really looking at Britain in about 5 years from the day they break off from the European Union being in a better position economically, financially, and more. I would say they're going to be more independent in a sense on trade, because trade is always more than one party that's involved. So I would say they would be able to complete a lot of tasks that they have a hard time doing with the European Union and their rules and everything that goes along with the European Union. That would they do just become an independent nation breaking off from the European Union, not paying into this frivolous expenditures and what have you. They're going to be in a position to go ahead and make deals, and I think that's going to encourage their people to once again look at capitalism in a better light and understand that making deals is not a bad thing. And you want to make deals on the board of trade, and you want to make deals where you must, for your own economy to strive, as Japan did and has built up their treasury to an outstanding number because of making simple cuts, because of rolling back regulations, because of doing the things that the Trump administration wants to do. It's time to take notice of this stuff. And it's not, you could attribute the stock market and how well that's doing to whoever you want. When Bush was in office, all we heard was, oh, the president doesn't have anything to do with gas prices or oil. And then Obama got in there, and those first 2 years, gas was real cheap. Oh yeah, all day long, go to the gas pump, it's real cheap. And then guess what? It went back up. And then we kept hearing it again. Oh, the president can't control gas prices. Yeah, but anytime something good happens, the leader of that nation or the leader wherever that organization is going to do a victory lap. It's going to go and get a bunch of high fives. It's going to go running through anybody in their way to make sure that they get to light the torch. So that's all it is, and it's fine. I have no issue with it. It's comical to me. What I like to focus our attention on now on the Preston Show is another statistic, another number. And again, I'm a numbers guy. Love this stuff. 8,000 self-driving cars on the road by 2020. And here's really my take on this whole thing here with the self-driving cars is insurance prices extremely high to have a self-driving car. Okay, your insurance is going to be outrageous. So there's going to be the kicker. I'm assuming based on what's happened with the electric cars that there'll be some type of tax credit. Okay, so there's some type of benefit in the works. I'd also like to mention that with the self-driving cars, 8,000 by 2020 is a bold prediction. It really is. Because very few states are going to allow this at first. So this is something that's going to happen kind of almost exclusively to a certain few states. So I wouldn't expect this to be the next gold rush. I'd expect this to kind of be, I would say more like silver. More like silver in the sense that it's going to be a steady thing that continues to grow and eventually overtakes the regular cars and our regular, vehicles, and our day-to-day driving becomes a lot easier, and that's fine. That's great. But, when it comes down to it, 8,000 self-driving cars. Remember that number. 8,000 self-driving cars on the road by 2020. My take, it's going to be great, but it's not going to be great off the bat for people who have these cars. It's going to have to work itself into our economy, which is the most complex economy in the world. So keep that in mind when purchasing a self-driving car. What I'd like to end the show on, and I'd like to end it in a very kind of light tone for a Sunday, and I just want to leave everybody this, and this right here before we'll have another show on Tuesday. Will be the next podcast. The GOP is not split, folks. It is not split over President Trump and Bannon, by the way. The GOP was never with Bannon. There were members that were out there as Republicans that were establishment type rhinos, but they really weren't. So it's really one of those things. It's a real gray area, but the GOP is not split over Trump and the Bannon feud. You got to remember one thing about President Trump. This president doesn't avoid confrontation. He won't avoid confrontation. He's shown us that time and time again. We know what we voted for. The people that voted for him know what they're getting. If they don't, they're lying, and they're outright lying. This is true. I mean, let's be real. This guy can't avoid confrontation. I'd rather have him in there than anybody else that was running. I'm happy every day I wake up and I know Hillary Clinton's not in that presidency. And I'm even happier to know that we have a man in office in President Trump that puts his foot down and, stops all this nonsense in the rest of the world with other leaders trying to push us around to take advantage of us. And Obama didn't really handle that well and left a lot of gaps for Trump to try to fill. And, President Trump there'll be some gaps that other presidents have to fill, but they're not going to be because of him. I guarantee you that. What it's going to be because of this president is a reinforced political idea that if you want something, you just got to go and work for it. Because look how many people doubted him on becoming president. Look how many people doubted President Trump. Look how many of the polls were wrong. Don't forget this stuff. This is important. We tend in this country, in this world, to move on to the next topic, to move on to the next tragedy. And, we have to do that, but we also have to remember the facts. We also have to remember the stats. We have to remember when the numbers don't add up. And with this president, so far, this is adding up to be a great presidency, whether you're liberal, whether you're conservative. I thank you for listening to The Preston Show. I hope you tune in on Tuesday. We'll have a great show for you, action-packed as always. Thanks for joining me once again. Stay warm out there. Just like the hands of time, I'm turning it over to you.